You see, something's going to happen.
What? What's going to happen?
Something wonderful.
What?
I understand how you feel. You see, it's all very clear to me now.
Welcome to the Occult Rejects. And in this episode, we got a four-headed beast coming at you tonight. We got myself, the fool from the Occult Rejects. We got the spiritual gangster herself, Teresa. And we got my man, Jinn the Ninja. And we got the myth, the legend himself, the Headless Giant. And tonight we will be talking about that crazy Olympics ceremony. Before we get going, though, I will let everybody that's here joining us tonight introduce themselves and let everybody know what shows you can find them at, this and that. Teresa, we'll start with you. Let everybody know where they can find your amazing work and what your deal is.
So thanks for having me for this. I'm very excited to hear everybody's hot take on this. But yeah, you can find me at the Spiritual Gangsters and also Midnight Mysteries Radio. Those are my two shows other than this one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And my man, Jinn the Ninja, what is up?
What is up? Thank you guys so much for having me. Love this panel. Obviously, I love coming on Rejects and just being part of the crew. You can find me, Threshold Saints, Spotify, Anchor, and Twitter at Wukong Reborn, which I am quite a prolific esoteric shit poster, as some have noted. So people can find me there.
Awesome. So, and Headless, back to you. Wrap it up.
You can find me on X. I do a lot of shit posting myself. If you want to check that out, you can see that there. I've also got an Instagram if you want to check that out. I'm going to be posting a lot of my pictures up there pretty soon. So check those out. See if you can find the esoteric symbolic references in those pictures. And if you do, I'll give you a cookie.
That's awesome. How nice of you. Tonight's topic, it really wasn't a hard thing to think about, but it was really kind of, Headless's idea to bring it to the show. So thank you very much, Headless. I really appreciate that. You always bring awesome topics and ideas to the show. But I think for two reasons, I'll try to get the weirdest stuff out of the way first. And just because I have a lot of stuff and I want to try to crunch it down and get it going. Even though it was Headless's topic, I'm probably going to start it off just to get it going. And unfortunately, you're going to have to wait to the end to actually hear Headless's opinion. So you're going to have to stick around. So I'll get it going here. I'm going to pull up my slides. The way I looked at this with the ceremony, and I will be totally honest with you, for one, it was way too long. And two, there was like a lot of kind of weird stuff in there that I just didn't care to have to watch. And I just really didn't care looking at boats go by for an hour. So I made it maybe 2/3 of the way in and stopped. But I really only focused mainly on the guy with the torch and all that stuff. And I do think, besides their occult symbology in there and symbolism, I do think I have a good case. I might have had a better case if I kept going, but I didn't. That I do think there is definitely eyeball symbolism in there as well. So I will be trying to touch on that as I go through the slides. Here we go. First off, the first one I just thought was weird. I mean, this whole time, this first guy is starting off with the torch, walking into wherever he is. Why this dude's got his hand in his pocket the whole time. Never once takes it out. As he's walking through the thing, he's got his hand in there. I mean, come on, dude. Also, in a sense, in like his clothes, I mean, he also has like a lot of, the black and the white would be, the black in a sense would be Saturn, and brown can also be associated with Saturn. So I do even wonder if there's like Saturn symbolism there just in the clothes. And then he ends up being approached by this guy. I don't know if there's any people here that are really Twin Peaks fans. There are a lot of things I will reference back to in that show, actually, maybe as like things that seemed kind of familiar. This guy himself reminds me very much of the fireman, which is funny because they do end up handing him off the torch eventually. But he reminded me of the fireman in Twin Peaks Season 3, or if he's also the Giant as well in the other seasons, and I think Fire Walk With Me. And he's always sometimes like in white and black as well, or in a suit. He eventually hands it off to this guy. In my opinion, at this point, I think you are starting to like head towards inside the eyeball. I have said multiple times for myself that when it comes to having magical effects, a way that I could explain it is when I do see the eclipse at the end of the tunnel, when it starts to glow and get bigger, it does also kind of look like something from far away coming closer and getting bigger in a sense because of I guess where it is. And I have often said that it does feel like I could be standing in the middle of like maybe 2 train platforms, and but it's hard to explain, but I do see how you can use a train as, you know, when I try to depict an eclipse at the end of like the thing and getting bigger, it's very much like a train to me. And eventually they pass this off. The train stops for no reason. The electricity goes out. It's interesting. And they pass the torch off to these 3 kids. They start going down here and going like into the tunnels. And they end up coming across rats and like a bunch of bones as they're walking through the tunnels inside the subway. Here you go again. The bones. Skulls. This may be a reach, but when I was looking at the cornea in the eye for the eye series, there was a lot of things. Like I would even say, depending on, I couldn't find the same depiction, but depending on some of the way the artwork is done, it actually looked like Jack Skellington's head was inside your cornea. And you start getting like stuff like this. And I do think, in a sense, rats are used because of backwards, it's star. And I think as you go closer up into your eye, in the back of your eye, you can start using rat symbolism for stars. So I think, like, kind of in a sense, like the total reflection from one end to the front, now it's flipped to a rat's instead of a star. And just right here, here's like things how, like, to me, it looks like skull eyes in a sense, or even bones or teeth. I even wondered, is that the chattering of teeth? You know? They keep going, more bricks. I mean, to me, it just seems to me, it looked like that. And then eventually, they get scared off by an alligator. And then this dude comes in with a white and black outfit. In my opinion, I think he is the Scalera and he is the pupil. So the kids get in the boat with him, very much like the River of Styx in a sense, too. I mean, come on, you know.
Oh, for real.
And then I understand this is France's flag, but I mean, it's very much like if I was actually, flip it. That would very much be like the power and the glory in the middle pillar. You know, if I was on the other side of the bridge looking at it, it would actually fit the tree of life. And then they come through after that explosion happens. This I found interesting with this angel guy. I did play some numbers with him. I mean, I don't know if it's like right or not, but where's my notes? What slide is this? I'm sorry. Accordion, I do know for a fact, does match Paris. So I did think that was weird. Sorry, I'm just looking. What slide is this on? My bad.
Can I just add something?
Yeah, go
quick?
for it. Yeah, go for it.
You might not have picked up on the guy that you were saying remind you of the Twin Peaks character who held the torch in the suit. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, he is somebody who's already had like the. I think he's won a gold medal before. I forgot his name.
Yeah, Zinedine Zidane, the famous soccer player who was famous for headbutting somebody in the World Cup, like using his head. I just thought that was weird. Going into the eyeball. Well, man.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was in 2006 World Cup.
Yeah.
I believe against Italy.
Yes.
I also think that his left foot on the X is very interesting.
Oh.
I just want to add that.
Very well said. Oh, damn. Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, if you're gonna look at his age in terms of the progression of the year, because he's sitting on top of the year, he's sort of like the middle area, before the year becomes an old man and gets replaced by the baby. So it's really a very strong summer symbolism too, with the wings and everything else. This is like Leo season, right? So he's got kind of that going on too. So just thought I'd throw that in.
No, thank you. I finally found my notes too. Got the guy with the angel wings playing the accordion. Accordion equals Paris in Hebrew. I thought this was interesting. Demiurge in English. The word demiurge is an English word derived from demiurgus, a Latinized form of the Greek word. And then, I mean, I don't know if it's coincidence, but I mean, I'm pretty sure it's the same way every Olympics. But I mean, it's a Greek word, and then Greece is the first fucking boat to come out. I don't know if that was coincidence, but I found that weird.
Well, the Olympics is all about Greece. All about Greece. So I'm not surprised at all that they would start there. This is the cult center for the entire Olympic Games. So it makes sense that they would just focus on that.
You start getting into like a gold type thing going on here, where I do think you'll eventually start seeing like alchemy and other stuff. There's a lot of gold symbolism. I even think possibly now, I mean, it's interesting. I'm glad you mentioned his foot on the X, because you will get Louis Vuitton suitcases, and I was figuring there was a play off of LVX, because that would make sense with all the gold going on. The sun is in the middle, like the LVX formula is based off of a kind of like with the sun as the center. So I was like thinking like LVX and then all this gold, and it's associated with the sun. So maybe that X or something had something to do with it. But I mean, you have a lot of gold here. Then eventually they start like melting stuff. I mean, this even makes me think about Norse paganism, maybe. They eventually turn this stuff into gold. I mean, this is really kind of almost like looking at alchemy, really, in a sense, too. You go there. Now it's the metal. More gold. And I do find it interesting that we went from a metal. Eventually, we're going to go into metal music. Now we went from gold, which, again, I thought might have like had something to do with Tifereth and all that stuff. And again, they did show Louis Vuitton suitcases. I just didn't take the snapshots of it. But like you do have LV, and again, gold, the sun, LVX possibly. Now you start going into red. You start seeing colors of red. You even see this. In a sense, I think going up the tree. By the time you got to the red sphere, I think you might have even like hit the hangman card. I know that doesn't have any. It's not tied to his head, it's a different way, but I was just wondering if there was symbolism there. But you will get a lot of red, and then you start seeing snapshots of like war. So in my opinion, we just went from the sun, now we're up to Geber or Mars going up the tree, which in my opinion, I think we went from the beginning of the eye and we're starting to go backwards. That's how it would happen. You'd actually be going up the tree, in my opinion, as you're going further back into your eye. More just signs of war and chaos, just what Geber and Mars is all about. And then we get into metal music. Very like, it just, to me, it's all fitting for Geber and Mars, and then all this other red coming out. And we still got this wooden barge constantly going. This is where I think we actually start to see some more eyeball symbols. And in order for, in my opinion, when you start messing with magic and there starts to be an actual change within oneself, I do think something will happen with your eyesight. And at one point, you will have to pull, one pupil will go small and somebody will go smaller. Like one will go small and one will open up. In order for the one to go small, to get constricted, it basically, the lens will like move and it pulls back. And when the pupil is bigger, it's because the pupil actually is not pulled away as far. So you do have to, in a sense, you have to move the zonules of Jinn and your lens up. You have to start playing around with the zonules of Jinn and the lens to get your pupil to change. Now, I do think, as crazy as this may sound, I think these crazy chicks up there, they're the zonules of Jinn. It's exactly what it looks like right there.
Yo.
And what they're doing is swaying back and forth, and that's exactly how you change your eyeball. Swaying back and forth, moving the lens.
Yeah.
Then we got some weird situation that actually doesn't have anything to do with the torch. But this is where you start getting the weird stuff going on in the library. You have books. You have papers. You even got, in my opinion, you have spirals here. I wanted to mention that too. But, they're in a library, and they start to, in my opinion, the zonules of Jinn. I know this may sound crazy to me. That looks like an open book. Right here on the right-hand side is a bunch of pages that are folded over, and the rest is the book that is laid open. And that's the binding of the glue that they would bind the book with. I do think, as crazy as it sounds, that looks like a book. They start rising up. She starts lifting up. They start going up a spiral staircase. So now everything's going up. Again, I even think the downward spiral into existence, you're, in its sense, going back up it. This I just wanted to show. Another thing with like a head issue. Before we had a chick holding her head. Now we have, this with no head. This is interesting. Venus. You see this in a lot of Twin Peaks too. I think she's in the Red Room. Or, that statue is seen a lot. I just wanted to add that because I did find, my opinion, some interesting playoffs of Twin Peaks. It may not be that they were thinking of Twin Peaks. Maybe them and just David Lynch happened to use the same style of ways to express themselves. This I found interesting. I don't know if any of you want to add to this. I just happened to catch this real quick, and this is like a glimpse of an overhead view. And I'm like, yo, they got a pyramid over here. The guy that looks like, what is that, a mason, like right here in the middle? It almost looks like kind of like the apron with a square around it. Got some weird stuff back here, in my opinion.
I'll throw in something
please,
really quickly.
please.
Is that in the library shot that I don't know if you noticed, Nick, but it has a 17 in the cloud numbers.
Oh, maybe I'll go back and check that out, actually.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, let me go back.
Yeah, I think that's the Louvre that you were seeing. The Louvre with the pyramid thing. That's like just outside
right there.
of it.
Where? Where's the 17? My bad.
There's a 1 right above it's like almost an 11, actually, like if you stacked 1 on 1. And then there's a 7 on the other archway. So if you look where the archway, there's 2 archways in the middle. There's a 1 and a 7 underneath the orb.
Oh, okay.
You got the windows across the top, and then under the 2 central windows, you got what looks like a 1 and a 7.
Huh.
Mm.
Those are good. I'm too blind. Especially I'm staring at the computer all day. All right. Thank you. All right, so now we got them. Now this guy again. Now we got back to Venus here. This weird picture. Here's another close-up. I just found that weird. That almost does look like a Masonic apron to me. Got a pyramid over here. What the hell's going on over here?
I mean, also matches the Eiffel Tower. There's like an Eiffel Tower at the end when the sky is dark, like I guess at the end of the ceremony. There's like an Eiffel Tower in the ground, and it looks just like this. And there's like a circle, and then there's like purple lights, because it's all about synthesis, right? So there's like purple lights illuminating this kind of on-the-ground imprint of an Eiffel Tower. So I think that's really interesting, because then it keeps paralleling the same image.
Thank you. Even this part over here where you see those rays coming out, I have seen that. I could be wrong, but I mean, I'm almost positive there is some depictions of Ra just being like a gold orb with like rays coming out of it too. Here you start seeing time. My opinion, once you start getting to crossing the abyss, time will no longer exist. And I even do think in a sense that is kind of like, my opinion with magic, I do think in a sense you are kind of messing with time in a bit. You're going back in time before you were actually in the flesh and back into the spirit. So in a sense, it's like, you could look at it, in my opinion, as going back in time. Another thing I wanted to mention, why I even brought this up too, we had covered recently, me and Lisa had covered Heinrich Kuhnrath's emblems and stuff, and he does have an alchemist's lab, and I would say like the right hand side looks very much kind of like what we covered. And it does also, I'm going to give credit again to Lisa, it does kind of look like the time traveler's thing itself. He had a clock in the middle, and he kind of did have like a weird room like that. So yes, it looks like not the time travelers, it looks like the scene from The Time Machine. So yes, I do find that interesting, and when she said that, I didn't know exactly what it was too, because I remember that movie, weird movie. So yeah, I have that. But again, like I do think, in a sense, when you start going into magic, you are kind of going back in time. Here again, they're showing you a train coming. Again, like I said before, I think when you start seeing that eclipse, it's like a train coming at you. And then eventually it busts through. And then he's there. He crosses the other side. Just want to see anything with the... Did you guys want to say anything before I go any further?
No.
Okay. All right, just making sure. But yeah, I had said multiple times in crossing the abyss, the lights can look like a train coming towards you in a tunnel. I even think I was going to be a little bit of a jump, but I have even pointed at Ghostbusters before. I think a hell of an occult movie. And if you were listening to Dan Aykroyd's actual interview on it, he will even say the movie is totally based on occultism. He actually admits it. Ghostbusters, when the train came down, and I think it was the black guy who was standing in the middle, he never got off the tracks. And nothing ever happened. He was okay. Death isn't that bad, I guess. But, you know, it did remind me a little bit of kind of that whole situation of, like, I guess, not giving in to fear. And eventually he crossed through it and went into black and white. Very interesting. Now black and white. Just take, you know, see this. Just make sure this is the overhead view so people get an idea of what the whole thing looks like. This guy's even got, like, glasses on now. You're focusing on something different with the eyes, in my opinion. Now, as soon as he use that torch and lights this turns to this color. This is exactly the tinge that I have spoken about, that when I start seeing those cellophane, it looks like movie reels, start coming down the side with scenes in them, this is the exact tinge that I see, that I have tried to explain over and over again. It's not black and white, almost has a brown tinge to it. This looks exactly exactly what that stuff looks like. When I saw them do that, I literally laughed. I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. That is exactly what. And the thing is, it looks like, my opinion, this what you're seeing right here is what Lana Del Rey and John Lennon are talking about with Cellophane Skies. Because it looks like you're looking through a tinged cellophane at these windows before you cross the abyss. Here we go again, just showing that. Again, one more time. I think that's actually possibly what you're looking at. I think at this point they've reached the optic nerve, where you will cross. Let me go back. There's like even a belt right there that to me kind of looks like a belt. If you happen to, anybody's in the OTO and happens to go to the Gnostic Mass, in my opinion, when the priest is down on the ground genuflecting and his head is between the priestess's legs and she has that purple fucking, used to have it on, there was a belt there. I do think that is literally what you're actually looking at too in the OTO and Gnostic Mass. You're seeing that he is about to start crossing and going up the optic nerve.
Sorry, Nick, did you say that the priest kneels before the
priest? Like he genuflects, yeah, and he puts his head between the knees.
Did you know that that is the meaning of Gamel?
Yo, we talked about that before.
It's a man kneeling before. It's a man kneeling before another man, but obviously, you take it into another meaning. I just think that's very interesting because that looks to me like that letter.
There's another actual crossover. So the oldest glyph for woman is that sort of M shape, right? And that M shape is what it looks like when a woman is giving birth. And so you find the M all over astrology associated with that, and it's always associated with the female, feminine. Well, if you look at the shape of cathedrals, they're all built in that same M shape. If you think about the sky, think about the Notre Dame Cathedral. Those two big spires on either side, it makes a sort of M coming down. And they think that the Templars were the ones who built all of these cathedrals to reflect that divine feminine nature. So that genuflecting in front of everything, that's the perfect sort of symbol of that M shape.
One thing I thought was weird, I was having a stoned moment, and I was like, oh, maybe that's like, because I do think NASA a lot of times when they talk about outer space, I do think you're starting to get into the abyss and magic that they're like kind of throwing in your face. I was like, oh, maybe that's the where is it? That's the Van Allen belt. Just thinking as a joke, like, oh, it's the thing you got to pass in order to get all the way out there, right? It seems to be something holding people back. And like as a joke, I was just thinking that. I was like, yeah, for shits and giggles, let me actually run Van Allen. And I did. And I mean, it was a little interesting. Under Hebrew, it matches crossed keys, which is, I was just showing you, your optic nerves do cross in your head. And Christ energy in Saturn's ring. In English, it does match the veil, keyhole, Venus. Oblique muscle, which is in your eyeball, Mabonian, which is a gland in your eyeball, ritual, square, tower, cosmic egg, and the wall, and Mike Pence. So I just found that interesting. I figured I'd throw that in.
The Catholic Church is all about the key symbolism.
Yes, crossed keys.
Flag and, yep, it's the same idea. And it goes back to actually Hecate, and Hecate having the keys as well. And that worship was done at the Vatican to the Kybaliene priestesses. And they built the Vatican directly on top of the Kybaliene temple. So there's a huge crossover between the divine feminine, these keys, and how they work with sort of a goddess or creation energy.
Thank you. And then really, after that, this, I mean, I hate to be an asshole, but it's like, unfortunately, it just was too symbolic for me. Plus, there was also, like, I do know the guy who, I forgot his name, who's, like, running the country now, I think at one point said he wanted to be able to rule, like, Jupiter or something like that. Some weird shit. And, I mean, this girl, she has a 7-spiked thing above her head, so that made me think of Venus again. But, I mean, she's not the color of Venus. She's wearing blue, but that is on the right pillar with Venus, which is blue. And listen, I'm just going to keep it real. Blue is for expansion, abundance. I mean, it looks kind of fitting here. So I don't know if this was like a reference to Jupiter as well. But it might be. I don't know. I'm just trying to be an asshole. I'm just, let's keep it real.
No, it's all about
she ain't
Jupiter.
hungry.
I think that's kind of the theme. Even the gold ball at the very end. Like, yes, you could say it's the sun, but the pictures that NASA shows us of Jupiter is gold.
And if you think of that heart, sorry, go ahead.
No. Sorry, Nick.
No. Go. My bad.
No, that's all I wanted to say. I find it a very Jupiter, and Jupiter was in sextile to the Leo and the Sun on the day that this aired. So I think there's a lot of Jupiter symbolism. There's a lot of purple. There's a lot of blue. Yes, there's a lot of red, but red is kind of secondary, I would say, to this idea of expansion, of mercy, of transformation.
Well, even red is across in the blue sphere too, anyway, on the Tree of Life.
100%.
Yeah, and like the weird thing, like, and again, that would be the 4th and 7th sphere, and we have the 47th president coming up as well. I don't know if that was anything, and it even looks like it's between two pillars in a sense.
Yeah, well, also the original Olympic Games were set up to worship Zeus or Jupiter. So the entire games are centered around Jupiter. And that's why they call it the Olympics, to represent Mount Olympus and all the gods. So there is a huge Jupiterian connection to the original games as well as these.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. But that is the end of my weirdness. And now I can let everybody else go. I was ending it with that. And where are we going to go with that? I've totally forgot. Oh, Teresa, you're going to go next, right?
Sure, yeah, I totally can. Here, I will add my.
Oh, no, my bad. No.
Jinn.
I think yes, Jinn.
Jinn.
Oh, I'm totally.
Yeah, he was like, oh, I was happy they skipped me.
He's like, I need more.
He's like, maybe
time.
they'll forget I'm here.
Do you want me to go first, Jinn? It's up to you.
No, I'll go. I think Nick laid a lot of groundwork of things that I'm going to.
Perfect. You take it away.
Okay, and not to break, obviously, Nick's genius order. So, okay. So I'm going to do more of a narrative formulation but definitely using things that Nick touched on. So I was like Nick, where I watched as much as I could. Obviously, I can't stomach that much of it. But things that stood out to me were the hosts. And when they were sitting on the sofa, and it's a purple sofa, and it has the little mascot. Now, if you look at the mascot, he looks like the letter Gamel that I spoke about before. I recently found out that actually you can map Hebrew and Sanskrit 1-to-1. I didn't know this for like my whole life, but I've now learned that you can do this. So the equivalent term in Sanskrit is Ga. That's really important. So the mascot, it's a little red guy. He kind of looks like a flame or a triangle a little bit with feet. So that's really important because that is what Gamel sort of stands for. He is the Trinity. So it's the three. And then it's also the flame, but it also refers to a transmutation, a sort of transformation from a rich man into a learned man, a guru. So that is what Ga means in Sanskrit, is someone who is a teacher. And what is the planet associated with the guru is Jupiter. So I think that's really interesting. You have a lot of sixes also associated with the day. Obviously, it's the 6th month, and it happened on the 24th, so that is 6. And you have a lot of solar things, obviously, and the sun is in Leo. So I think, and the lion is kind of the lion of the state. And you see this a lot in France, is the symbolism of the lion and sort of like Louis, the Sun King, and it's just very Leo. And so I think from my perspective, if I give it more of a tantric layer, and I know people will wonder why I would give it this, but I think it's interesting to go back to like the original show I did with Nick on the series, because I think it actually ties in really well. So in the tantric pantheon, there is a form of Vishnu named Naram Simha, who is a lion-faced king with 6 arms. Okay, he wears as his crown a giant naga, a big cobra, it can be between 5 to 7 heads. So in some ways, he resembles, and this is not just my interpretation, but a scholastic interpretation, he looks a lot like the Aeon, sort of the deity of this Mithraic sort of deity, of the sort of signaling a changing of the yugas or a changing of the kalpas. So in his story, he conquers the world. That's what Vishnu kind of does. He is reborn as a worldly person, and he conquers the world, and he becomes the king of the world. However, he has to slay a demon. When he slays the demon, he drinks their blood. His bloodlust cannot be slated even after he slays the demon. So he starts eating the maids in heaven. He starts eating the other gods in heaven. He is a king who consumes his own kingdom. So I found this really interesting in comparison to the Marie Antoinette sort of rock music video thing where Nick pointed out there's a lot of red. So there is a Scarlet Woman element, and I think that many people probably have noticed that. But in the Tantric Pantheon, the direct correlation to Naram Simha, the lion-faced form of Vishnu, is a goddess called Chinnamastaka. She who has a severed head, or she who severs her own head. Now, when we watch the Marie Antoinette sort of video, we don't know how she severed her own head or how it became that way. Obviously, we can draw the illusion from the French Revolution, guillotine. That's also interesting because Chinnamasta is associated with the planet Uranus if we do an updated astrology. But she's also associated with the dragon of the eclipse, just like Nick said. So you saw the train, this kind of whooshing sound. That is something that happens, but you could also say that is the sound of pralaya, the sound of dissolution. So I found that very interesting. And then we also saw the silver Pegasus or the silver horse. That can also be an allusion in Tantra to the silver dragon. So the dragon who becomes purified, liberated from form. And if we think about Chinnamasta, it's also interesting that her number is 6. But when I did the series with Nick, I didn't put her at the sun, at Tippereth. I actually placed her in Kether. Because if you understand, she stands between the material world and the formless world. She is the radical liberation of the form into the formlessness.
Yo, real quick, Jinn, I just want to insert something that you were mentioning.
No, sorry, go for it.
You know, with the horses and stuff, I think you're spot on with the horses. First off, I think that is used to actually show, like, you know, like a direction, like you're going forward or something. But there is a part where they do show that guy that metal horse for a while.
Yes.
I do think you mentioned illusions before, right? How the horse could be mentioned with illusions. I do think, this is just my opinion, I do think at some point you kind of do blast off from the moon and you go up like the tree. And the moon would be associated with illusions. Yes. So I think that's why the horse is silver, but yet there is a constant light reflection. Like I do think you're actually seeing kind of like the moon going up to Kether with that horse, that silver horse when you see it. And the thing I wanted to even get at, you take horse, you swirl those letters around, you also get shore, which is to me like the shore and the waves breaking, that's even more moon stuff. So
absolutely. I mean, absolutely. So this is the people might think this is crazy, but Nick just laid it out, is that the moon has a secret side. It is death. But you have to understand it, or not, maybe understand is wrong, perceive it. You have to kind of hit off Chesed, hit off Jupiter, and then you're looking at it and you're like, okay, this is the abyss. I'm going to cross. Here we go. And the silver dragon, if we compare him to the dragon, or the silver horse, excuse me, to the dragon of the eclipse, what does he do? His head eats the moon, swallows the moon to create a lunar eclipse. So, and the silver horse ran on the water, and there's a blue, sort of like a turquoise blue reflection. Well, what is that? That's the center pillar. Turquoise is really white. We're seeing this kind of energy coming down. It's the.
If I could jump in 1 second there, Jinn.
Oh, sorry, Headless. I was yeah, totally. Go ahead.
So last time I brought up this guy called the Museum of Tarot, and he has this great Instagram page where he does a bunch of experiments with occult pieces of artifacts, right? And one of them was the dicyanin goggles, and he was taking photographs of the human aura using these dicyanin goggles, and he got this really strong reading while the solar eclipse was going on. So there was a spike in energy at that point, and you could actually see it on film as he's photographing through the dicyanin glasses.
I mean, that completely makes sense too, because when you see the goddess depicted in her sort of iconography, she stands on a 3-tiered lotus throne. So it is the moon, it is the sun, and then there's a blue layer, and that is the eclipse. So she's the only singular Dakini or goddess to stand on the eclipse. Usually it's a man and a woman in what we call Yab Yum, in coitus. But she's able to liberate the dragon. That's what her sort of conceptual idea is. And I also want to point out that there is a purple bridge in the full-length video, but that's really important because Gemel can also mean bridge. It can also mean the bridge, just like she is the bridge between the material and the higher world. And purple, obviously, is the color of synthesis. It's the Chesed, the ocean of mercy, coming together with the fire of strength. And then where do they meet? They meet in Tippereth. But it's launching upwards. You're not really at Tippereth because it's an eclipse. You're really, like Nick said, at the moon. So I just want to give a couple quick gematria things, and then I'll...
I just want to throw this in. That's why I think Crowley focused a lot on Kafna Kansu, is because he is a male deity for the moon. And Thoth can even be associated with the moon. And again, Thoth is magic. So
Exactly. Like Nick's reading my mind here. So Mercury.
Too, real quick, the horse. Teresa. No, sorry, just before we get off of it, the horse running across the water, relates to the hippocampus, because I mean, hippopotamus is a water horse, right?
Oh, seahorse.
Yeah, well, kind of. Yeah, exactly. There was like a Poseidon thing. Who always use the horses, the water horses. So I thought it was very appropriate that the horse ran across the water, and then would reference the brain, the hippocampus.
Oh, that's really great, Teresa. I didn't even think of that. But that's totally seems correct to me. And then I think also with the horse, something that I found interesting was that, well, silver is obviously associated with Yesod, with the moon. It's the planetary metal. So regardless of whatever it's made of, it appears silver to the viewer. So that's also interesting. I didn't really note that. But Marie Antoinette, she had some really interesting gematria, in fact. So Marie is 125, which is obviously an 8. And Antoinette is 450, which is obviously a 9. So 8 plus 9 is 17. So although I said in the tantric idea, she liberates the dragon as well as herself because she doesn't die by severing her own head. Maybe in their thinking, it's like the 17 in more contemporary magic. It's like the beast and the whore entwined. It's them, and they're sort of keeping each other in the 8 in the cycle. So I think that's really interesting. And then also what Nick said with time and the 3. So you see like this relationship with Saturn, but she's able to liberate from time. She's able to sort of usher in the new age. So I think that's also really interesting. And I think if you look at again, to go back to the hosts, when they're sitting on the purple couch, so there's an older woman wearing a dark blue jacket. There's a black guy wearing a purple shirt. Then there's a younger blonde girl wearing a red dress. Then there's a younger guy wearing a fully black outfit. So I thought immediately, like, that's Yadhe Vavhe for sure. It's like the queen, the king, the princess, and the prince. And it just seems to me, this is just my opinion, obviously, and I'm not even calling it satanic or anything, but I just think is this transitional phase that they are at least ushering in this idea that we are moving into sort of a new aeon or a new yuga or a new kalpa. And I think that the 6 being so prominent, but also with Jupiter, which is a 4, 10, so that's completion of like the whole tree, right? Like obviously death is in and out, but you could say it's the whole tree. It's the whole tree in completion. So it's the 1, the prime. But 1 is actually not a prime number. A prime number is really 2. So it's the female with her consort. So we know in the tantric story that after she severs her own head, yes, she goes up with her consort. She realizes sort of the nature of the cycle, nature of the world, and that she is the world. And so she also needs the sky. So anyways, I thought that was really interesting, that whole idea. Oh, I should also say for Gamel and Ga and some of the Sanskrit associations with it is that Ga can also mean killing. It can also refer to a bell. Now, why is a bell important? Because a bell in Tantra refers to the female consort, and it can also be a derogatory name for a prostitute. So I thought in reference to the Scarlet Whore, that's actually quite interesting. And to go back to the thing about gold, is that even though she is red, in the tantric idea, she is the transmutation of all 3 gunas, so all 3 qualities, tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic, white, blue, and red. So even though she appears red, she really is the transmutation of those things into gold.
You mean the French flag? White, blue, and red?
Well, just like the French flag, exactly.
There you go. Why do you think there's so much red, white, and blue all over these flags?
Well, it's
there has to be something with that. I do believe that. Just like, it's interesting enough. I forgot whatever that combination of color it is that Dave Chappelle says at the end that he uses on his logo. I had looked. You remember that whole the red, whatever. If you look
red,
up
the black, the green.
Yeah, if you look up that color combination for flags, it straight up tells you that actually is straight up color combination for black nationalism. So if a country's showing you that, they're letting you know what's up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Headless, you're muted, buddy.
Oh, it's just like the Islamic flags. If you know what you're looking at when it comes to Islamic flags, you know exactly what you see on these things, because it's all about the color, it's all about the phraseology, and it's all about the different styles that they use to write on there. So once you understand those points, you know exactly who they are and where they're coming from.
100%. I mean, it's, France is the home of the Illuminists, and they held the first Black Mass in Paris. Well, that's what they say. If you read the bio. So those are the 2. So if you see them, she's holding the severed head, and it's important in the tantric iconography because she doesn't die. So even though it's sort of, she's removed from her body, like very similar to a magical experience, she's outside of her body, but she's still alive and the head is still animated. So that's a really important idea. But obviously in the tantric picture, she's drinking. Oh, that's another note, that she is drinking of her own sacrifice. She drinks one of the 3 streams, the inner channels. Teresa will know about this from yoga. But there are the 3 channels in the body, and she holds her head and she drinks of the center pillar, the white pillar, even though it's red, obviously, and it appears red, but it's really clear. So that is another interesting parallel with Sanskrit and Hebrew, because gamel and ga can also mean to nourish. So to drink from a camel's hump, if you're in the desert, that's kind of the idea. And so in the tantric conception, she has 2 subsidiary goddesses, sometimes depicted as blue and white, sometimes depicted as blue and red, and she is white. It depends on the depiction, but her sacrifice gives unto them. So she feeds the cycle and feeds their sort of lower desires, where she liberates herself from desire. However, to bring back to the lion symbolism, I think that they are sort of entrapping her into the 6, sort of this hexagonal idea, like the 666. Like they're keeping her in the form. And that is, she represents in that way the state, just like the lion sort of represents the state, or the king at least, and she is kind of the body. Just like they say that Babylon is the body of or the goddess was the body of Babylon. So the idea is that the that the body of the goddess is sort of the kingdom as a whole, or the state as a whole. And so I think it's interesting also in contrast to 17, where 17 sort of posits a more liberatory exit for her. She can sort of becomes another character in the play or the cycle, rather than be stuck in this sort of like under the earth, like Headless was saying in the Vatican, like a goddess under the earth. But I think they want to keep her in that red form, in the desire form.
Bingo, dude, you nailed it. I mean, that's exactly how it's been played out all over. If you think about the form of sexuality that was dominant under Christian Europe, it all had to do with the chivalry idea and sacrificing yourselves for women. That was like the central core of everything, and that represents that sort of desire, and then ultimately for death. A lot of the characters in those medieval plays always end up meeting their end trying to quest for a woman or something.
Well, what's really interesting is if you look at the tantric depiction, she is standing on the god of lust and the god of desire underneath her feet.
That's so much like New Wheat.
And they are copulating. So but there's another way to understand it, is that when she looks at them, she is standing on herself and her consort. So she is fully aware of like that her act of copulation is the creative process, but then she's able to stand on top of it. And the feet are really important in Tantra, because that is the part that is the kingdom. It's sort of like it is the tree within us. So it's like the root, obviously, and that also ties into Gamel, which is a foot and a man. So I think that they're definitely telling a story, and it's a symbolic story, and she stands upon lust and desire, and she sort of liberates herself from it, but this sort of brings her back down. That's why that red is really a transformation in alchemical terms, if you understand it. But if you just look at it, she is red and she's just in desire, she's in her lust. But that's what the sort of, I think something interesting about Tantra is that people see the sex thing and think, oh, this is transgressive against the Christian idea. But no, she's really standing on the god of lust and the god of desire. So she's really saying that, oh, that is not, it's not sex negative, but it's not sex positive either. It's kind of a different conceptualization of it. And she's saying that she is above it. So she's going into formlessness. She's the lightning strike.
Well,
back
I mean,
upwards.
I mean, that is a thing that I do say, and you know, listen, I don't even really like getting on this stuff anymore. But, you know, I do think sometimes some of these sexual ideologies are really actually occult ideas being misunderstood and mistaken. I do think at some point, if you want to try to start really, I guess, in a occult way, describe crossing the abyss, you're going to start getting into weird ways to express sexuality or sex in itself. Because at one point, I mean, if you think about it, angels aren't screwing. So if you want to start getting into being in the spirit, well, then there is no sex, is there? You know, in my opinion, the whole thing with magic, too, is that you have to start working with both energies, but not produce a child with it. You're actually going to work together and not have sex and actually create something without screwing. And that's, you know, kind of the out, whatever. I do think there is some ways, like, kind of touching upon that with symbology, but you know, even Toth, I mean, I know it's a weird thing, people don't get it, but I mean, I do understand when it comes to magic and Toth sometimes being considered as a hermaphrodite, or when you get both sexes put together. I do get that understanding in occultism. Sometimes it just will make something easier to understand, but it's going to look weird as shit, and I think that stuff gets misunderstood and then reduplicated in a lie. You know, I understand
totally
what you're saying, Jinn, with stuff like that.
No, I totally agree. And interestingly, she is said to be beyond conception. Well, conception can have two meanings, right? To conceive a child, or to, it's like a thought we have and we sort of move beyond it. We move into the higher order thinking.
You either conceive a new life in this world or you conceive a new life in the spirit world. Put it that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the thing about Toth, I think, makes complete sense. We just describe it a little differerly. It's just that Shiva, who's at the moon, he is an ascetic, or he's sort of lithophilic, erect, and depicted at Saturn. So I think that's also really interesting, because it's just a different way of understanding his positionality on the tree, rather than, it's not really talking about sex. It's not really talking about his parts, but you know, that's what they used iconographically to depict it.
If I could jump in on that note, so you were talking about lithophilic, which would mean, like, instead of the sky impregnating the earth, it's the earth impregnating the sky. That's a different take, but I see a lot of other cultures where they actually flip the genders of the sun and the moon. So in some ways, you can actually see, well, the moon is the female, like Amaterasu in Japan, and then the king is the moon. And so the king is actually more powerful than the sun. And then you've got that Kabbalistic idea again, where the moon is actually the pure light and not the false light of the sun.
Well, there's something interesting there, Headless, is that in, like, the Himalayan thinking, both tantras, like Buddhist and Indian, it's always a union. It's always a consort. So yes, the Shiva can be at the moon, but then he has a consort who also appears at the moon, by Ravi, and so there's always a consort wherever Shiva is, and wherever she is, he's looking for her. So there's this kind of, like, idea, and he is like the moon in the sense that he is Dath. He is the god of secret knowledge. Like, that is his original conception. It's not anything to do with, I don't know what people say he is now, but you know, he's the god of consciousness, but a kind of a sleeping consciousness, a consciousness that isn't lightning struck yet.
Well, there's lots of mythology about Shiva where he's compared to a tunnel of light that is infinite amounts long, and Brahma, and yeah, so they go down and they're trying to find the end of it. They can't find the end of it. They can't find the top of it, and that's when it comes back into Shiva's form, and they're like, well, this is who I really am. There is no beginning. There is no end. So it really does have that underlying feel of consciousness inside of everything. And if you think of the other two gods of creation, you've got the sustainer, Vishnu, you've got Brahma, which is the creator. So it's that constant dichotomy of problem, reaction, solution. but it's all part of the one thing. It's all part of that causality of where we're at on this plane.
No, you're right. That is the Puranic story of when Shiva becomes the Vajra pillar, the middle pillar, this blue sort of turquoise. It's not blue, it's turquoise light or turquoise energy. And he says, who is the tallest of the three of us? But then there's also another way to understand that. And it depends on your sectarian sort of perspective. But Shiva also is Brahma. Brahma is not really a creator in the sense that he's not full. Brahma is always a husk when the other two gods are with him. And then obviously in Tantra, we add in the wife. So the consort, she tends to take on a more important role. And then we also say that she is the world. And I know this is a Kabbalistic idea as well. So this is sort of the Babylon, the moon daughter, at the moon or at Yesod, she is sort of produced in this tripartite synthesis. Even though we say it's at the sun and it's where gold is produced, it's really like Mercury, Venus, and Death, and it's all coming together at the moon. So it's just another kind of perspective that you could look at it from, I think is interesting.
If I could hop on again. So if Brahma and Shiva are the same person, creation and destruction, when Shiva is sleeping, he's bringing all of our souls into existence. It's his dream that we exist in, right? Since the beginning and the end are both the same thing, that means everything in the middle is the same thing too. And that gets into Parmenides and his poem on nature, which posits that there is no separation between anything. This is where you get Zeno's paradox from, which says that if you're traveling halfway to a target and then halfway again and halfway again, then you're never going to reach that target. So how can you actually be separate from all these different things? So it took, I think, 1,700 years for them to solve Zeno's paradox using some form of mathematics in calculus. But 1,700 years is a long time to be working on a paradox like that. And I don't think they got it completely right. So having that perspective means like we're so integrated with each other that doing these rituals really does have an effect on the collective consciousness of everybody.
Thank you. Jim, was there anything you wanted to really... I wanted to say something about this real quick and just let you
go. Yeah, go for it.
I have even, something I thought about when I did see this. To me, it's interesting, and I have said, like, I've had experiences a few times. When meditating, I would consider, like, at this point, I would think I was actually having magical experiences. There was a time where I said that, like, I would find myself to be places that, like, was not here, for sure, But it was always as if, like, I was, like, a hovering... I did not have a body to me, but I was still hovering and looking at everything. I was basically kind of eyes without a body hovering around. So, I mean, for me, because of that experience, when I see people like holding a head, I mean, it's very much like how I felt, kind of being swayed around. And just like interesting, just to wrap it up, something that I always found interesting whenever I would have those experiences. And again, I'm even thinking, as I'm looking at this, I remember one of them specifically, I started to get the idea, I guess, of self and started to think, what do I look like? And I wanted to turn around and see myself. Pretty much after that, or any time I ever start thinking about the I, it's over. Because now I am separating myself from the all. So I find that very interesting.
Think about on a foggy mirror, right? So you just get out of the shower and you look at yourself in a foggy mirror. What do you see in the eyes? They start to go a little bit blurry and you can't tell exactly where your eyes are through that steam. Well, there's something about that sort of resonates when it comes to once you notice it, it takes you out.
I would even say you see that a lot of times with, like, when people kind of almost have opaque eyes if they're playing around with stuff. I mean, you could even say that's like a steamed eye in a sense, too. So I see what you're talking about, for sure.
Well, that's like a meditative practice in general. Like pratyahara is when you, like, blur your senses and, like, basically blur your eyes on purpose. And it helps you, like, connect and meditate and, go to another place in your mind. So it's almost like you have to dull, like, your vision to do that.
Yeah, I thought that was all really great. Thank you guys. I'll just finish on adding that you can see, so you can see her standing on the hexagram right there. So the hexagram is obviously 6. She is the 7th, but there are other secret layers I won't get into. But you can even see how her throne has 3 different layers of colors. So this is quite rare in terms of Buddhist deities, and these are Buddhist depictions. But one of them is syncretic, but they're Buddhist in general. So she is the 7th. So she is kind of the 777. And I also think it's interesting that she stands between the sun and the moon in the first depiction. I mean, in all depictions, but she is kind of the falling star, but she's also the rising star. So she's able to sort of liberate herself from where she fell. That's kind of the idea. It's very Gnostic. And but again, she's also able, there's something interesting that Headless said about Zeno's paradox. And it sort of goes back to what I always think of as the original sort of axiom of how they divided God. And so God should never have bad qualities. This is something in Buddhism and Kabbalah. It's very similar. And so these Zoroastrian priests divided God into 2 main qualities, time and space. So Shiva and Vishnu. Vishnu represents space. Vishnu in Buddhism becomes the dragon. He becomes Rahu, the dragon of the eclipse. So they have a very they have an interconnected relationship, and I think it's interesting because she is able to she is obviously water, like steam, like we were saying, air. She's transformed all the elements, all 5 elements, all 6 elements, because consciousness, she's perceiving herself, right? And then she's also sound, like Nick was saying with the train, there's that whooshing sound that can sound like silence in a way, because you're kind of deafened by the rush of the wind. But then there's also something there. There's also a lower vibration, like a lunar vibration. So there's multiple elements happening, but she's transformed them all into her skull cup that she's holding, and she's drinking them. So she's perceiving the world as it's happening, both inside and outside of her physical body. So I think that's really interesting. But then I'll just end with this on the note on Thoth or Shiva, is that there's an there's a very dynamic relationship between Hod and Yesod. And I think that this is why people get mistaken with, like, okay, so is Hod a prince or a princess? Is Yesod, like, what gender is it? I think that the truth is that it's a twin. Hod is more of a twin. So, but when it's interacting with different planets, it appears in different ways. So if you want to say when Hod interacts with Yesod, it appears as a princess. But when Hod interacts with Venus, it appears as the father. So that's sort of what I think of it, and Tandra sort of explains it in this way as well. But, there's multiple different explanations. But Quicksilver, again, to tie back to Gemel and Ga, both of those letters can also refer to Quicksilver, which is it's the process, the alchemical substance that you need to really go upwards. That's sort of the thinking. Or something happens between Hod and Yesod that transforms Mercury into Quicksilver, and then it's able to, like Mercury, sort of transcend its form.
It is interesting if you even follow the chemicals that are associated with certain planets, even on the tree. You will actually watch like solids start going into liquid things, back into other stuff. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's a whole elemental sort of motif in the whole games, I think, and like we saw the water, we saw the fire. Interestingly, with the castle and the explosion of the red and the blood, that also reminds me of her spilling her blood onto the ground of the kingdom. So it's sort of replenishing what was lost, replenishing, sort of renewing the cycle, renewing the earth. Because there's no one there in the Marie Antoinette video to capture it, like there is in the tantric image. But you could say that the state is one, and you could say that the people watching the performance, because perception, again, is so important to see and understand what you're seeing.
Again, real quick, just to throw this in before we move on, you mentioned Mercury and Quicksilver. Mercury, again, is associated with Hod. They're on the same thing on the Tree of Life. again, that gets into the whole hermaphrodite symbol. But one thing I find interesting with that, it isn't a solid, but it is like a metal. Like, it's very weird. Like, that's even like a weird thing. It's starting to transition into like one shape into another, you know, from a solid into something else. And just like the hot air balloon that they showed, if you add heat to mercury, it will rise up in your thermometer. So adding heat is even something to do with that, I think. You know, technically, if you think about it, you add some heat to mercury, it defies gravity.
Yeah. And it's very hard to burn mercury. Like, it's very hard to cause a chemical reaction with heat. Like, at a high enough heat, yes, you can produce a little gas, but generally it's stable in and of itself. So she's always surrounded by fire. She's always surrounded by what we call pristine wisdom fire. So in alchemical terms, it would be a heatless fire. So I think, again, to go back to the gold orb, I think that's really interesting. And then when Nick showed the slide of the eye, if you look at the inner core of the eye, it has a yellow gold layer.
If I could jump in there real quick. So I was just looking up the brother of Pegasus, because Pegasus and his brother Chrysaor were both birthed when the head of the Gorgon was severed, right? And Chrysaor means in Greek, one who holds the golden sword. So you get that Rahu and Ketu vibe right there. Both of these sort of dragons are seen in these galloping horses all over the performance.
Yeah, 100%. I think that is sort of the idea. I think the horses become horses when it is about the state or about the kingdom. But then when it's about more magical or mythological themes, then they become dragons. I think it's like Mercury. It's a transmutational process, and they're expressing this sort of transmutation of matter through different forms. But I think that was really great, Headless. Thank you.
I think that political analysis is really good. Are you done there? Because I can really get into it. All right. So the whole history of the Olympics comes down to elites showing off their battle skills, right? So you've got people in chariots that now come to these games, and they have these massive chariot races. Now, if you know anything about the ancient world, chariot racing was the biggest sport since anything. Like, we're talking way bigger than football, way bigger than all of that shit. It was huge. Everybody loved it. In Turkey, where we see Constantinople, they had the world's biggest track, and the athletes that would compete there would actually make more than what athletes are making today in their monetary system. So it's a big deal, these chariots, because chariots are how you won on the battlefield. And this was like early Bronze Age, early Iron Age kind of stuff. Like, if you had this stuff, you were the elite. These medals made you the top of the heap, right? So having the bronze sword, having the iron sword, these things were huge to them. So when all of these elites got together from different parts of Greece to have these competitions, it was like a way of flexing their muscles and showing the rest of the world how strong we can be when we get together. In Greek political systems, they were so jealous of their freedom that they would refuse to even get together in a group sometimes, so much so that they would send out colonies from each one of these little tiny city-states. They all had their own dialect of Greek, and they were all very different. That's really not reflected when you think about Greek culture. You think about it as all being one thing, but it's not true. It was so different from one part to the other. They had their own dialects, they had their own culture, and all of this stuff carried with them through their gods. So having all of these god figures come out in these Olympic Games shouldn't be any surprise, because those themes are just all over the ancient games, and this was a ritual to Zeus. Again, like that big blue color. And what do we see them turning Dionysus figure into? A blue Zeus, right? Zeus-Amon is the combination of Zeus and Amun-Ra, which would be this blue colored god. So you've got that huge crossover there that happened when the Greeks were occupying Egypt, right? So the Greco-Egyptian period is when all of these ideas about Hermeticism and all this stuff just really start to bloom, right? Because it all came out of this Alexandrian library where a lot of this information was being stored. Having that linkage, you can start to understand why you've got the library symbolism in that video as well. They're trying to bring back the idea of this lost religion and where it comes from, which is, the Alexandrian library. That sort of transferred over to the Vatican once Christianity took over, and having that huge tie-in between ancient peoples over here keeping a library and then Rome being the new repository for the world's knowledge. That's where you get the goddess symbolism, because it's that knowledge that allows them to keep politically everybody informed. And if you think of the Vatican, you should really consider that as being the world's first mega corporation, because it acted exactly like that while being the board of directors for each one of these countries. Now, when you think about them being the board of directors for all these crowns and all this royalty, that's a really big deal. And the war between the Masons and the Catholic Church really came to a head right there in Paris. So I've got here, that's what you're seeing when you see the Marie Antoinette image, right? That's the contest between Republic Masonry and the rest of the world, right? We sort of copied off of them. They were both, we were both co-members in the Society of the Cincinnati, right? So these two forces together were very much into these concepts and these occult practices. This is why we see in Washington, D.C., the roads are laid out in a very specific pattern. Now, again, the guy who designed Washington, D.C. the way it was came from France. This is the Arc de Triomphe in France. If you notice, it's a giant sun. The giant sun symbol radiating out all over the planet.
That's just like the thing I was showing before with the pyramid and stuff.
Bingo. Right? So it's right there in the streets as well. It's not just D.C., the Vatican, and London. It's also in France. And that is a huge influence.
Well, it was France Masons came over here with him with the Cincinnati. I mean, makes sense.
Right. So that big Freemasonic influence is all over Paris. Like, that's the way it was designed. And that goes back to the French Revolution, right? And what do we see the mascot for the Olympics? It's the Phrygian cap, right? It's the symbol for the French Revolution. They had those red, ugly hats that they would put on top of their heads that would indicate that they were one of the revolutionaries. They were also called sans culottes because they didn't wear culottes. So there's that aspect too. These French revolutionaries were all about logic and rationality, and they actually deified logic and rationality and had them as their central figures, right? They tried to bring back the goddess in that form. And so what it ended up doing is bathing the entire town in blood. And obviously you see all the red imagery all over that town. But the terrors after the French Revolution, it was just mass slaughter over and over again. It was like a sacrifice bringing us into the new generation, the new industrialized age. And they said that by the end of it, France, the general population lost 1.5 feet of height. So they went after all the nobles, all the people who were part of these elite families that had been part of the aristocracy for, thousands of years. They just decided to kill all of those people off, right? Because they were head and shoulders taller than everybody else in France. If you think about that time period, like, people were pretty malnourished, but the elites were living pretty good. This is, again, that Marie Antoinette thing. What's really interesting is none of this would have happened if the king had taken a stronger stance against this Freemasonry idea, right? Because the Freemasons were so bitter at France for what they did to Jacques de Molay, they wanted revenge. And what they say is after they beheaded the king, a Freemason jumped up on the stage and grabbed his head and said, "This is for Jacques de Molay." So, I mean, they're saying we are the Templars right there all over French Revolution shit. So that's another big angle, because all of the occult symbolism seems to be driving through that Middle Eastern connection that the Templars had. And we've got the Knights Hospitalier too, which are still involved in running all of the medical industry today. The Knights Hospitalier have been around since it's over 1,000 years now. And it's still in use today. It's called the Knights of St. John now. They've just changed their name over the years because they keep getting kicked out of countries. I wonder why that would be. So these Knights Hospitalier are very much connected to Paris, because after they killed Jacques de Molay, they said, all right, all the Knights Templar, we're confiscating your stuff. Well, all the Knights Templar became Knights Hospitalier, and they're like, we're not Knights Templar. What are you talking about? So they just made the jump over, and they stayed in the Knights Hospitalier. They never confiscated any gold from these people who had the most gold in the world. And it was widely known. That's how you could have international banking, is they would hand out these slips in one city. You would take it to another city and pull out your gold, right? Because they knew it was as good as gold. So the paper became the currency. And they started, inflating the paper. And that's where you get these big booms and bust cycles from. So at the core of our banking system is the Templars. And the Templars go back, so far back in history, they're using that kind of Babylonian mentality. So having that as the perspective for what's going on in this, I think it was a massive demoralization campaign. Because if you look at how they depict, not only like the Christians are right, yes, it looks like the Last Supper, but it also looks like the Greek gods as well, because they've got Dionysus right there on the table wearing blue and, telling your kids to do awful things, right? So
I do want to add this. Maybe now, again, I did not watch the whole thing through, but from where I got, to me, it looked like it could have been the Last Supper. I would assume you're going to have to pick and choose who your 12 are, because there was a lot more there than that.
Well, Da Vinci
that I didn't understand. I'm like, wait, there's more than 12 people here. How is this the Last Supper? I'm
there
like,
was
oh,
17. There was 17.
Oh, I'm like, oh, so I guess we're just going to wait till the right time when people are moved the right way to say that was that, right? I mean, if there isn't 12 people, how is that the Last Supper? I don't get that.
There was another painting of this Bacchanalia, which was set up like the Last Supper, and they depicted all of the Greek gods sort of in that Olympian frame. And so when you compare the two, it's like, yeah, there's probably more of a similarity there. But what are they saying directly?
There's something different going on. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
What are they saying directly with that scene? They're saying,
it's like an amalgamation.
These are your new gods. The gays, the trans, any of that stuff, these are your new gods. That's what they're telling you right there. That is not a pretty picture.
Yeah. I even heard one priest take on it, and he was like, you do realize they're telling you that they hate you.
Right. Big time. But here's the thing. Of course they're going to do that, because they just tried to kill the president, and now it's no longer in the news. So you've got to get those Christians' attention elsewhere. And you can't even look up the assassination of Trump anymore. They want it to go away. I said this when it first happened. They want this to go away, because all of it reveals how fucked up everything is right now. Like, completely fucked up. If you look into all the details of that Trump assassination, just every step along the way, it's like an indicator of all these different forces coming together to try and make this happen, and it failed. It's almost like a bigger embarrassment that they couldn't get the shot right at 150 yards, right? But anyways, we don't need to talk about that, because all the outrage has now gone straight over to the Olympics, right? So if we, get too deep into the Trump assassination, we might get somewhere and might actually make some arrests, but we don't want to do that again. So anyways, another aspect of all of these cathedrals having that M symbolism as their logo, McDonald's, right? All of the M symbolism goes back to that goddess worship. And if you look at the Star of David, the six-sided star, right? Everybody's used to looking at the points on top, right? Point on top, point on the bottom. But what if you switch it sideways to where you've got the two over here making an M shape, and then the two on the bottom making another M shape? So not only is it the symbol for, bringing life into form, you know, as above, so below, you're also talking about this red goddess idea, right? You've got the two forms bringing us into our conception, our physical reality. And I think it's interesting that Chrysaor is also not mentioned in many other places. It's like he's the Holy Spirit of these two animals, right? And what's his name? Chrysaor? That definitely feeds into the Christos mythology that came later on from that Greek origin. So Chrysaor is like the unseen brother that is a spirit throughout the world. But at the same time, you know, Pegasus is the one that will actually show himself, because in the myths, like these two animals came from this Gorgon character, which is so central to all of their mythology. They've got it plastered all over their buildings. They've got it plastered all over their shields. The symbol of Medusa was everywhere. They call it the Aegis seal. So that Aegis seal is that symbol of protection everybody used back then, because they understood how that was connected to the form and physical reality. Like, this is a shield. This is the blockage point. You cannot pass this. It's a very interesting idea, because that Gorgon form has a lot to do with some of the more serpentine figures in the Buddhist religion, right? You've got the Gorgon having so much to do with, I forget the name, but the sort of serpentine people in Buddhist religion. I know somebody else can help me out on that.
Oh, Nagas.
Nagas, there we go. And the Nagas were said to be a race before mankind, and they just sort of stuck around. But there is that idea that there was a linkage there to our deep past and our deep history. And I think when they're doing these rituals, like the Olympics, they're trying to wake up the deepest part of history that they can get to. And that is where you see that pale horse, right? So in the biblical tradition, the pale horse is the one that brings about the apocalypse, brings about the end of the world, right? Again, back to that Chrysaor idea, traveling over the water, that sort of image for spirit. You've got to corrupt the spirit so that you can poison everybody. And having that image of that pale horse is really reminiscent of all the rest of that. That's the only overt, really Christian symbol I saw. The other ones were far more generic. And the gods, as you know, they kind of look way more generic than like biblical figures that are easily identifiable, you know? They're kind of interchangeable, at least in the artwork.
Yes. Thank you. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Headless?
I think I'll leave it here. It seems like, as we talked about between the dragons and the horses, right? They're going with that form, that political idea of the dragons. They want to bring as much chaos in as they can possibly get their hands on, you know? And what we see also, you were talking about the passing through that radiation belt. Well, what if that has to do with the asteroids? Right? Because the asteroids are also named by the Vatican. They choose all this mythology. And then based off of the ethers coming into our environment, asteroids can change the course of ether. So based off of what the asteroid astrology is on that starting point, you're going to see exactly the intentions of this ritual, because they get that there are 3 dials. The rest of us are just catching up to planets at this point, you know. But once you get into those asteroids, they have massive effects on the astrological charts.
I'll just throw in, Headless, that was so great, that Ketu is also associated with comets. That is his tail, is the sort of fire and gas and cloud, the smoky tail of the dragon. That is his association. So all comets and asteroids are under his purview, and the eclipse particularly is under his face, which is Rahu. So the planets and the asteroids and the eclipse, that is sort of all one thing, and then also distinct things at the same time.
Very nice. All right. By accident, I'm sure you didn't even realize we just went out of order. So,
it's okay.
Instead of Headless going last, Teresa will be going last. But this should actually make it really interesting, because she's going to be looking at it in a completely different way that it's actually probably worked out better to do it like
Probably.
this. Yeah.
It's fine.
So if people still listening in on the live, stick around. She's coming up now, and it's going to be, I think, pretty weird and interesting. So take it away.
Thank you. Also, too, I don't think it's a mistake that the House of the Dragon season is going to be ending like right when the Olympics is wrapping up.
I was going to say something about
around the same time. So, dragons everywhere. Fire and blood, baby.
that. And I have mentioned on the show when we refer back to the brain, the dragon in some senses I do think is used to show the same thing as the seahorse part of the, you guys mentioned it before, corpus callosum, I think, right? I always get confused with that part of the brain, but they kind of, my opinion, can be both used in the same way. I even think pretty much that's what H.R. Geiger was doing with some of the aliens, look very much like the same thing. It's interesting how you have the dragons and then that other family that is with them is seahorses. Right? I mean, a seahorse is also used to show the corpus callosum.
Yes. The Valerians, yes.
Yeah, I'm just like, a lot of brain.
The seahorse face. The seahorse face looks a lot like a dragon. They even have some species of seahorse that are called sea dragons.
Right? Yeah, that's true. Oh, shit. That's right. Damn.
And the only fish to have live children.
Right? Oh. And the male births the children, or he carries them in a purse.
Yeah. That's very hot. It's very.
Oh, that's what the purse is. That's what the purse is with all the all those old pictures.
Little babies.
Yeah, he's got little babies in there.
Oh man, that's funny. All right, I'll just bring up my slides, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah. Oops, my bad. I forgot you can control.
That's okay. No worries. So, okay, let me get my notes here. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for all your analysis so far. It's been really interesting to listen to. So yeah, I just wanted to establish the timing of the opening ceremony and the Olympics itself for people who don't know, because I will refer to the dates throughout. So if you didn't know, the Paris Olympics is the 33rd Olympiad. Classic, right? And yeah, it's officially starting July 24th to August 11th. But the opening ceremony actually took place on July 26th. So I've used that date just to do some calculations throughout. Also, I just think it's weird that it's occurring during the Lionsgate portal, of course, of 8/8, August 8th, and concluding on August 11th, which is, of course, 88 if you multiply those numbers. Okay, let me get the next one up. Okay, so of course I have to talk about this. I can't let it slide. I know Headless touched on it a little bit. With the controversy, is this a depiction of the Last Supper? Is this a bacchanal? What are we seeing here with this weird blue man in the center during the opening ceremony? So, of course, it could be both. I was saying maybe it's an amalgamation. I wanted to ask myself, who the heck is this guy anyway? Who is the man in blue himself? So he's a French actor and singer. His name is Philippe Catherine. He was born in 1968. He's been active as a French singer since 1991. And I just happened to catch in a YouTube short by CNN, he has a keyhole tattoo on his head, which I thought is super weird. I was just like, whoa, what? I saw that and I was like, pause.
Yo, not for nothing. I've even said, I was like, if you kind of think of where I forgot the name of that hat that the Jewish people wear on the back of their head. I'm like, yo, that's exactly where it feels like your soul's slipping out of your head. And that's exactly where that keyhole is.
Covers the soft spot kind of, right? When you're a baby, sort of around that area, right? I just thought that was weird, so I had to include it. The
soft spot's up here, but that looks like that's the back.
Yeah.
Back. Yeah, I guess so, right?
Yeah.
Right, that would be the crown chakra because, again, they call it the crown because as you're coming out of the birth canal, you're wearing your mother as a hat, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the crown as you're coming out. That's why they're always so big on the crown symbolism.
Yeah. Oh,
Bangladeshis also, that is what Bangladeshi even means, is Bengal in Sanskrit refers to skull cap, just like Jews wear. So
I didn't
something
know
interesting.
That. Oh, wow. Thanks, Jinn. All right. So another interesting fact about this actor, singer Philippe, he also founded an artistic movement called mignonisme, which I think means something with cute. Jinn, you can help me out, maybe our Canadian French classes.
Yes. It means it's like a little kid cute.
Like the most cute or something.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Cuteness, maybe. Anyways, so I just thought it was weird that the movement is represented by this mascot named Monsieur Rose. Rose meaning pink in French, but I just thought rose with an occulted meaning there. So that's Monsieur Rose in the slides, sitting atop a building in Old Quebec, actually. That's where that picture is from. I just thought it was strange. So obviously he's a very creative person, shall we say. And in an interview about the controversial opening ceremony performance, of course, he did share that he was raised Christian and that he said, the most beautiful thing about the Christian faith is forgiveness. And he just said it with like such a mocking tone too. It was very interesting. All right. So it's a little bit about him.
Humiliation ritual.
Right? Humiliation ritual. Exactly. Just like I couldn't get over when I heard that priest say, he's like, you do realize they're telling you that they hate you, which is, I think, exactly what this is. I know we could argue the influence, of course, of the Greek, like Dionysus, Bacchus motif. Totally. I get that. And that makes sense, being that the Olympics is founded in Greece and pagan in origin, obviously. I just wanted to compare the two paintings that people were referring to. So there's the, what is it called? I don't remember, sorry, the exact name, but the Dionysus painting on the left and the Last Supper is on the right, of course. And you can, then I just referenced the performance in the bottom right there. I mean, to me, it looks like more so the Last Supper, or it's like some blasphemous version of it. It's like is an orgy gonna happen? I don't know what's going on with
If
this
you notice,
man coming up.
In the back of the Last Supper, you see the M as well, right? With the windows.
Oh yeah, like the arch.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah, you do see that there. So I did just pick up on a couple things, and I do think it is more so to disrespect the Last Supper, just because of the woman with the halo and the blue as well. Blue, of course, I know Nick touched on, a meaning of blue, but also like to reference the Virgin Mary. She's often depicted in blue. And then there is, if you zoom in, very Disney-esque, a nice phallic symbol on her leotard or dress or whatever it is that she's wearing. I was like, that is very like Little Mermaid penis vibes. I thought. Which I thought was interesting that she was the one wearing the halo, and that's what she was wearing. So,
can I add something, Teresa? I think it's interesting to go with your point and Headless's point as well, is that the M is Virgo. It's the Virgin, so Virgin, Mary. I just think, and right, it's the element of earth. So you have this, and then with the goddess that I showed, there's also an element, even though my goddess is air, there's also an element of air with Virgo, and she's kind of dancing or flying is the idea. So I think that's really interesting and I agree with you. I think that you can see it as a Last Supper mockery for sure, and I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, and even the girl, the lady in the blue with the halo, she is a French performer. She's a DJ. Her name is Barbara Butch. She's an LGBTQ activist, and she also tweeted out on X that, quote, "This was the gay New Testament." So, I mean, obviously you're referring biblically to an event, and then she since deleted that tweet because they tried to backtrack it real hard. They were basically going, using the excuse of the Dionysus painting, blah, blah, blah. But then the Olympic officials did have to come out and apologize and say that it was influenced. I believe the head of the opening ceremony, his name is Thomas Jolly, that he did take inspiration from the Last Supper. Yeah, no kidding.
Barbara Butch, 22.
Barbara Butch. Was that her handle?
22. Well, if you just do it in simple English gematria, it's 22, right?
Okay, all right.
The second letter. So I just thought that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they couldn't deny it anymore. I did think it was interesting too, and this is why I do think it was referencing the Last Supper, and it actually is a lot more disrespectful than just like referencing the painting, because at the Last Supper in Catholicism and Christianity, we believe that that was the institution of the Eucharist, like in that moment, that's when Christ did that, which is like literally the pinnacle of the faith. So for them to go and like blaspheme that is pretty crazy. And of course, he did establish that in 33 AD, this being the 33rd Olympiad. France is also referred to as the first daughter of the church. So for it to happen like in Paris is pretty significant as well. I believe that's like almost like you guys were saying, it's like bringing in a new era. I'm not saying necessarily it's like an antichrist thing or a satanic thing, but it definitely is maybe France turning its back on its traditional roots and entering like a new aeon.
How many times do they have to burn the cathedral at Notre Dame for that to be clear?
Right, yeah, like the burning of the cathedral. It's like they just keep these symbols as like more of a cultural thing. It's not like they really like believe it anymore. You know, they're clearly like turning their back on this. Yeah, also too, because the Dionysus Bacchus figure is literally being served like on a silver platter, and Christ said like, "This is my body, take it and eat." And it's like now this like perverted bodily offering of this blue avatar man, you know, it's just like the total like inversion and perversion of.
If you think about the red roses he was wearing as well, so you've got sort of that blood symbolism there too. It's not just my body; it's also my blood there.
It was both at the Last Supper also. So this is basically just like the inversion of the Last Supper. It's very, very interesting to me. It's like almost comical, like how like blatant it was. Also, yeah, with the Dionysus Bacchus. Also Pan, like to me, I was seeing this figure and I was like, this looks like Pan to me. With him literally being served as the meal. Also
instead of the green man, you got the blue man.
Yes, well, we're going to talk about another color man in a second. But the actor was actually singing a song called Nu, N-U, which in French means naked. Which is this guy's song that he wrote.
And you was also another word for another goddess name for new wheats as well.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Like so, I want to just want to say this real quick. There's like a track that I've even used in one of my DJ mixes. The name of it was New World Order, but it was spelled N-U.
N-U.
I mean, that was even what caught my attention to even listen to it, to even realize I wanted to use it. It's because, in my opinion, I was like, oh, it's a play on words. It's some cult shit right there.
Yeah. Well, I just thought it was interesting to refer, the song even was referring to the body. You know?
Nu in Chinese means a woman. Nu Ren.
Oh.
That means a woman. So I also think that's really interesting.
You think about that, you throw another N on there and you get a nun.
Oh, and noon.
Yeah, noon, which is also,
clever.
yeah. Oh, something I did want to mention real quick. I mean, I don't know if there's a correlation before you move on, but like the 17th, the Emperor card has He on it. H-E, he. You know, maybe that's something right there too. But the way that would look like a 17 written out.
Well, and there was 17 performers in the tableau. Like in the scene, there was not 12. So that's why, you know, we mentioned that, okay, there's not the 12 apostles, but there's 17, which I just thought was an interesting number of people to use.
Yeah. And the Emperor sometimes does have something in his hand, and he can be depicted with some weird shit on his head sometimes.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty clear that it is mocking for sure. That's really not, up for debate too much. But also an amalgamation at the same time. It's not just like straightforward.
But it's still ugly. Like, let's face it, it's ugly.
Like, right? It's not even like, like it's not attractive to look at. Like, if you want us to be, if you want us to join your club, maybe you should like seduce us a little bit more. Like, what is that? I don't want to be in that club, guys. Sorry. You know what I mean? Not
at all. But that's the point. It's to introduce ugliness into your life. That's why he's saying this is why they hate you. Look, they're telling you, look at all this. We want you to be like these people. We want you to be eunuchs. And that's an interesting thing, because eunuchs were chosen because they had no future and they had no past, right? So that's why you wanted them in the court. And what do we see now with the LGBT movement? Well, once you're in it, you have no future and you have no past.
Right? Yeah. Well, like even, you know, transitioning kids, you basically like stop them from procreating, right? All right, moving on. So, funny enough, God answered the next day. Well, some would interpret it that way. So the very next night, so between Saturday and Sunday, the entire city of Paris did experience a blackout and was in total darkness, except for one place, guys. Come the fuck on. Okay. The Basilica of the Sacred Heart, Sacré-Cœur, which has a shrine of perpetual adoration to the Eucharist. It is 24 hours a day for 140 years. This place has had a consecrated host ready for people to come and pray in front of. That's the only place that wasn't blacked out in all of Paris. Like, you've got to be shitting me. I'm just saying.
That is weird.
We got to thank the Vatican for the show.
I was like, yo, did the Parisian like hydro people do that on purpose to like make a nod back at the Olympic people? Like, is this a fight, or is this just like a mystical?
Well, I was
miracle?
even wondering, how do we know there isn't a way that shit's actually powered by the self-contained?
Yeah, like, I don't know. Did they have a generator? Like, I don't know. I'm just
It's very Tipperish. It's very gold. Like, it's like it's the creation of cold gold. Like Sacré-Cœur, like a Sacred Heart. Like, it's all the rays, Jesus's rays coming in together in the heart with the little cross on it, and then it locks. That's sort of what I think of. I don't know. Maybe
you know what it does remind me of? People probably really wouldn't remember. I'm just crazy enough because it caught my attention and I wanted to look at it. But like, I think for a day or two, people might have noticed Elon Musk changed his logo to where it had like these glowing eyes.
Oh, really?
And that caught my attention. And when I opened it up, there has been times where I've tried to explain myself what it looks like when I start to see that pinpoint that it will eventually turn into.
Can I hop in there?
Yeah.
So that was a trend where these people converted their pictures to red and black scale and then added blue eyes. And that blue sort of laser eye thing, I think, was supposed to be done after Trump got shot. So this was their sort of response to that. It's interesting that he took it down because it's sort of like fading away. People aren't really talking about it anymore.
Oh, see, I didn't even know what that was for. But like, when I clicked on his picture and opened it up, I was like, you fucking cocksucker, man. I'm looking at his eyes and I'm like, yo, that is like the perfect artistic depiction of like what it looks like before the shit starts to pop off. And I'm like, yo, is that specifically there because like he actually was just putting in the vision that he's seen and used, like, because it's like, for me, it almost starts to look like burning clouds. Like, it's really hard to explain, but it's like you will see layers as if like you're looking. Remember as a child we had those 3D readers, and it's basically just a bunch of layers and slices of things put together to make it look like 3D. It's very much like you will almost see like, it looks like clouds because like you'll just see like these bursts of colors that would start to look like the outlines of clouds. It's so hard to explain, but this huge pinpoint, like burning white light in the background. So it starts to look like, I sometimes say, roses or flowers blooming, and you're just seeing the outline of the explosion, of the burst. It's really hard to explain, but when I saw those eyes, I was like, yo, that is exactly what it looks like. And I was like so mad that he like had that up there and I couldn't do it myself. I swear to God, I was like, you bitch.
Yeah, like, he beat me to it.
Yeah. I'm like, motherfucker, that's shit I see with my eyes closed, and I could never pull that off.
Yeah, that's funny. Oh, man.
Well, what if this is all just another initiation? Like, you remember that used to be a thing, like looking at these events as if they were parts of an initiation. I think that's what's continuing with this kind of event.
Yeah, I'll be totally honest with you. I have even wondered about that sometimes. Like, there's a lot of shit just like really, like, I hate to say, like a Cicada 3301 fucking grand scale.
That's what I think too.
But there might be some levels of that in there. I have thought that before.
I find it all very illuminist. I find it like almost like breaking the klipa, like in Kabbalah. Like, we're talking about it right now. So we're engaged in the dialogue because they did something provocative, transgressive. Even if, like, I found the games very boring personally, like, or not the games, excuse me, the whole opening. I didn't find, but I'm very immune to it, right? So maybe I'm not a good audience member for that. But I do think it's illuminant. I think the colors is telling people. It's like signals, and to people who know as well. Like, it's telling them some kind of cipher.
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
agree
very
with that.
very ritualistic for sure. I
You
just
could
found
just
it-
say,
Go ahead.
sorry, real
No.
quick. You could say that programming and initiation are kind of the same thing.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. We go ahead. Yeah, very well said, man. Depending on who's doing it is the problem. You know, because you could, I do believe, like in a sense, magic is reprogramming yourself, but removing issues. You know, in a sense.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I just thought this whole blackout thing with the one building being the place where the Eucharist is always exposed, and they just blasphemed the Last Supper, which is the institution of the Eucharist. It was a pretty interesting symbol, I'd say. And Jesus, of course, always referring to himself as the light of the world. Like, whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So there it is, right there. Anyways, that blackout didn't last very long, and apparently they still don't know the cause. They do suspect that maybe it was supposed to be an attack on the train system, but it obviously didn't last too long. I did find it interesting. I'm pretty sure from what I watched, what I gathered was this hot air balloon motif was the torch lighting. Like, finally, after passing it to like 100 people, they lit it and then sent this like hot air balloon into the air. This is a very interesting choice of a hot air balloon. Like, it's very modern and like stylistic. First of all, looks totally like an eyeball. Like, totally supports what Nick was saying. I saw it and I was like, whoa, like that is an eyeball for sure. And then when I saw the kind of like bird's eye view in the top left with the black like circle there, I thought, oh, maybe it's sort of like, again, blaspheming the Eucharist. Like, it's a black like circle, a black host, and then like this cross shape as well. But that's just my interpretation. I've seen that in a couple movies as well, with like black holes, black circles, that I think also are referring to like an inversion of the Eucharist. That movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, has that in it. If I can see, like a black bagel. Anyway, I think it's like a
you've got the black cube, and so the counterpart to the black cube would be the black circle, right?
Sure. Yeah,
so you've
exactly.
got sort of that Scarlet Woman imagery right there too.
Yeah, totally. And what was I going to say? Just a quick note too, like, this is totally hearsay, but I do listen sometimes to like mystical messages, like Christian ones and Catholic ones. There was a message from supposedly the Virgin Mary to a certain mystic, and they said that, or she said that World War III would begin out of France. And at the time I was like, France? I'm like, what? Like, you know, with all the conflict happening in Israel and like other parts of the world, I was like, why France? But now that this has occurred, I can kind of see it more happening. Also, there was an Islamic extremist who had a video come out just before the Olympics who was threatening to terrorize people during the Olympics. So hopefully, I'm just saying that was said. Hopefully that does not happen. But, you know,
you got to remember there was a bombing. I think it was the '89 Olympics or something like that, '88 Olympics, and that's when they convicted an innocent guy who was one of the security guards who actually evacuated the area, and he ended up suing and winning a lot of money against them because, you know, they picked the wrong guy, and there was like a 2-week-long manhunt during the Olympics to try to find the real bomber. So. It's fascinating when you get into that Olympic bombing thing.
Yeah, that is interesting. Also, too, there is this, I think he's Archbishop Vigano, who is like hot on the conspiracy trail. Okay, this guy knows what's up. It's very interesting. He was recently excommunicated by Pope Francis from the church for causing schism. So causing like scandal, whatever, because, he is like an ultra conservative, critical of Pope Francis. I forget the exact thing that he was like convicted of or whatever. He's also one of the only archbishops who stood up against sexual misconduct by his peers. So I guess the Vatican doesn't like that. He also has said that Pope Francis is the false prophet and a servant of Satan. Like, this guy's on fire. But he tweeted out after the opening ceremony He wrote a statement condemning the Olympics and also pointed to the fact that he believes Macron's wife, Brigitte, is a transvestite. Like, he publicly wrote that and tweeted it out, which I thought was pretty gangster. I guess he doesn't care now that he's been excommunicated. So he's like,
so he's saying transvestite and not transgender. Right?
Transvestite.
I think that's what he's trying to bring back, because when people take back the language that they're using, it doesn't really have the same sway. So transgender is far more like internal, but transvestite is very external. So if you go back to using that term, it pisses so many people off because you're not using the right terminology.
Yeah. And Candace Owens actually shared his original tweet, which I thought was very interesting as well. So a lot of people saw it. All right. Just so, yeah, not everyone in the Catholic Church is in agreement, guys. That's all I'm saying. I did think it interesting, too, the way that the Blue Man looked in that performance reminded me of something I've seen before, which is the Green Man on the invitation of King Charles's coronation. So I'll have a close-up of it on the next slide. So there he is, the Green Man himself. So it's funny because, Jinn, you were talking about the Nagas and like the hooded serpent. So the Green Man has strong ties to the Egyptian god Osiris and the Greek Roman god Dionysus or Bacchus. So were we just seeing the same character in both major world events? Of course, Osiris was said to have greenish skin, but other gods, are often depicted with bluish skin. And also then the blue, connecting it to the Hindu gods and then the Nagas, I thought, to me. That's
100%. No,
right?
I agree with that. And green is really interesting because green can refer to two different elements. It can refer to the air, and then it can also refer to the water, depending on, it's really up to the artist, like who's depicting it, because blue green is nebulous in Sanskrit and Chinese as well. So I think that's really interesting and really good you picked up on that.
Yeah. Also,
if you look next to the Green Man, though, you see both of those seals right there are the seals for the Rosicrucians.
Yes, the roses, right?
Yeah. So the Rosicrucian seal right next to the Green Man is very interesting. It's a interesting choice.
Very interesting choice that it was on the invitation for Charles's coronation. The Green Man to me also resembles Puck, whose other name is Robin Goodfellow from Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. Puck, of course, being based on Celtic mythology. He's a mischievous fairy, a sprite, or a jester. And just yesterday, you guys had on Occult Rejects Contemporary Problems, who was just killing it with the jester and joker numbers and connections. So I just thought, oh man, this is like just so appropriate that I just watched that yesterday with you guys. But yeah, also, of course, we have the Joker movie with Lady Gaga coming out and Joaquin Phoenix, Joker Folie à Deux, which is a French expression for mental illness or shared illusion between two people, which I think the whole presentation of the opening ceremonies is meant to be a collective shared illusion or delusion.
They actually call that folie à trois. Folie à trois is with two or more people. So like the entire thing. Yeah. So, it's like levels. Folie à deux is like two people who are isolated, who share a delusion. And then folie à trois would be everybody in a town going nuts. And what's interesting too, is they had that place in France that they poisoned the water supply with LSD. The CIA did. And so they all experienced that folie à trois. And they were all just freaking out and having similar shared experiences. It's crazy.
Tripping out together. Yeah, I think that's what they're trying to force us into, honestly, is to like bring us into this like delusional inverted world. And, a lot of people are not having it. And some people are and some people are not. But interesting too, like I know Contemporary Problems, he kept hitting on the 4s and the 8s, coming up with jesters and jokers and with Trump and a lot of what's going on. So I just found it interesting that movie is coming out October 4th, which is 10/4. Of course, the Green Man, he has the foliage on his head, appearing on medieval churches, is a symbol of rebirth and resurrection, tying together the old ancient pagan symbols with the Christian faith as well. So I thought that was very interesting. According to the royal website, The reason why the Green Man was included on the invitation is that he's an ancient figure from British folklore, symbolic of spring and rebirth, to celebrate the new reign. The shape of the Green Man, crowned in natural foliage, is formed of leaves of oak, ivy, and hawthorn, and the emblematic flowers of the United Kingdom, which I think also the roses, like you hit on, Headless, for a nod to the Rosicrucians.
Right. Can I get Jinn to hop in here? Because I know he knows about these different herbs.
Oh, for sure, right?
Sure. I mean, okay, so...
oak, ivy, hawthorn.
Well, okay, oak is a herb of Jupiter. Ivy, contentious, it's slimy, so sometimes people say it's Saturn. And then hawthorn is an herb of the sun because it is cardiotonic. So, and the heart is associated with the sun. So, yeah, that's my planetary attributions.
Thanks, Jinn.
He just gave you a lesson in medieval spellcrafting because it's right there. Once you know the language of the herbs, the way you depict them actually casts the spell.
Yeah, interesting that those specific ones would be included. Also, to note, keeping in mind the 4s and 8s, the coronation of King Charles was May 6th, 2023. The opening ceremony being July 26th, 2024, is 448 days. So 448.
Yo, that was wild too. How much that kid was bringing up those numbers yesterday.
Yo, right? The Queen's death, September 8th, 2022, to the opening ceremony, 688 days. Come on. So again, of course, the death, rebirth, phoenix, symbology, crazy 8s. Trump is surrounded by 8s. Like, it's nuts. All right. Moving on to that. Okay. I made a
when you're done, I just want to remind you, can you go back to that picture when you're done with your stuff? I just want to touch on something on that. After
you want me to go back?
No, when you I don't know if I want to break it up for that.
Okay, well, at the end. Yeah. All right. I don't know if this is a bit of a reach, but I saw actually Nick put this up in his story yesterday or like the day before.
Yeah, somebody sent it to me. I think I just
okay. Yeah, so Legionnaire's disease is apparently making the headlines in Australia, which was, of course, a hotspot of COVID, one of the like countries that got hit the worst with restrictions and whatnot. And I do find it interesting, Australia, Canada, of course, very tied to the British Crown, that we were hit the hardest in the whole friggin' world with restrictions. So when I see Melbourne in a 33, I'm going to pay attention, right? So it's saying, of course, Melbourne Legionnaire's disease mystery outbreak grows to 33 confirmed cases. Okay, is this the new COVID? Like, I'm paying attention now. So I just wanted to tie it into the Olympics because, again, the Paris Games being the 33rd Olympiad, I don't think that's a mistake. Legionella is the bacteria that causes Legionnaire's disease, which you can catch from the water. The opening ceremony being the first to be held over water. I found that weird. And you know, Q always says, watch the water. I
just wanted to throw in real quick.
So,
oh, like, is this the new snake venom? Legionella bacteria? Go ahead, Headless. Sorry.
So the interesting part about French Freemasonry is that it's called the Grand Orient Lodge, right? Which is different from a lot of the other British ones. So this Grand Orient Lodge is always very closely associated with communism. So it was from the French Revolution forward that they sent out their agents from the, this form of masonry into other Masonic lodges and kind of took it over from there. But I mean, you could see these things happening in the background, but it's not so obvious now. But for that to be saying we are the 33, that's basically the Grand Orient Lodge saying we own the entire planet now.
Interesting. There was, I know I always refer to this, probably people have heard me say this before, that Freemason guy, Jeremy, who came out several years ago on the YouTube channel that I watch a lot, Minute to Midnight. He came out in 2020 saying Trump would be assassinated or attempted, and he would know about it, that he'd be complicit. They would do stuff to the water to make people sick. Like, he said a lot of things that have come to fruition, which is very interesting. And I think some of these things were planned for last election, but got put off to this one. Because it seems like what they had planned 4 years ago didn't pop off exactly as, I guess, they wanted, ideally. So they're trying things again. Of course, the beginnings of COVID was March 11th, 2020. That's like the official date that we can use. That to the opening ceremony is 4 years and 4 months. There's a 4-4 or an 8 again, which I thought was interesting. Also, again, the blue man being representative of Pan. Is this a new pandemic? I don't fucking know. Maybe. Right? There also is a researcher who specializes in like dissecting false flags. I don't know if anyone's heard of him. His name is Ole Demigard, I'm pretty sure. I listened to like a lot of his work a long time ago, and he has claimed that the original plan for COVID in 2019 was to spread it at the military games, which was held in Wuhan. So the point was to infect athletes and spectators, and then everyone would travel back to their home countries and infect the entire world. And that plan got foiled because some people got wind of it and started spreading the word, and they couldn't do that exactly as planned anymore. So I'm wondering, are they trying to do the same thing at the Olympics, maybe with Legionnaires? I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know. Just saying. It's a reach, but interesting.
I see the connection, but it would have to be more contagious than Legionnaires. It doesn't have a very long incubation period. But, you know, they've been messing around with genetics.
It's possible, right? Or something else, because Legionnaires is basically just like a severe pneumonia. Sorry, it says it in the slide here. Severe pneumonia caused by lung inflammation and infection from water or soil. So, I mean, unfortunately, people who are jabbed have a defective immune system now. If they catch this, is that worse for them than it would be for like a normal person?
Well, Legionnaire's disease comes from the Legion Hall that actually had these people who got the first cases of Legionnaire's disease. So it could definitely be related to, you know, a government program to actually create another virus. And they did it with ticks and having, what's it called, Lyme's disease get out. Why not Legionnaires too?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Also, the timing between the military games, October 18th, 2019, to the opening ceremony, 1,744 days. 1744. Come the fuck on.
I also think it's interesting. Sorry, just to jump in really quick. There's a viral meme on Asian Twitter. Okay, everybody's gonna think I'm ridiculous.
Asian Twitter.
That's fine. But of the Chinese swimmer who won, he set a world record. He got snubbed by the American swimmer. And the American swimmer wouldn't shake his hand. That's sort of the thing. I just thought it was interesting to bring up in context to Legionnaires. We saw the pandemic, how that kind of popped off. You know, there's something, I don't know. It's just, we'll see, I guess. It's like a prediction, right? We'll see what happens, but something interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Something maybe to keep aware of. Just to kind of like end it a little bit from what I was saying. You know, one of my favorite quotes about God in general is he knows what he is about. You know, like he has it on lock. It's not really always for us to understand exactly what is going on and why. I do personally think that always the best interest of humanity is at play. Now, I do think, like we were saying before, a lot of the more recent events is to literally like enrage Christians and like conservative people, which I think is on purpose. And I would say, please don't get upset, because if you're seeing all this, what is it going to do? It's going to create a revival. If anything, it's going to have the opposite effect. Like the purpose of evil is to bring you back to God, really. Like you can either let it destroy you or you can let it inspire you to choose differently. Right.
Well,
so
you have to understand, too, that going back into these churches is going to put people back into a pro-Israel kind of mindset. And they want to have another Israeli war going on. So getting them in there.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Yes. Well, and especially that like PragerU conservative Christian line of thinking, like that's what this is, trying to drive you into that. And that's why all the same Catholic Christian talking heads, they're all like so behind Trump. They're like so on fire to like defeat the evil Democrats, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, whoa, like park it for a minute Because, okay, yes, maybe some Christians need to be shaken awake. That's possible. Or people in general. Maybe some people still need to be shaken awake. And that's the purpose of the insane tableau performance with the blue guy and the whole opening ceremony and trans.
What you said is really important. What you said is really important when it comes to understanding that Alex Jones has turned into a preacher. Like, all he does is talk about God now, and what he's trying to do is to get people on board with this idea that Trump is this savior figure. You know?
See, and that's where
so much of that.
That's where, I'm going to say, whoop, nope. In my opinion, that's a mistake, because I think that all this is to distract and then to insert a lot worse things under Trump and JD Vance, possibly, if they get elected. So in the slide, I included just like a little tidbit. This is a tweet from Whitney Webb. She's doing great work, breaking down Trump's speech on Bitcoin and crypto, including the endorsement of Bitcoin dollar and Bitcoin stablecoins, which is basically the same thing as a CBDC and digital money. And that's exactly what you don't want. So they want us to support these guys and hail them as heroes, just like Elon Musk. Same thing happens all the time. Also, Trump and the right backing the same person, I forget the politician's name, sorry, in Venezuela, where there's so much upheaval right now. The Democrats and the conservatives both backing the same candidate. I don't know if it's, what's his name? That guy. Maduro? Is that the one?
No, they're against Maduro. They are backing the next puppet that, just like a repeat during the Trump administration, they had the same kind of thing going on. They tried to do a replacement up there or down in Venezuela.
Yeah, really, and Venezuela is really interesting. But yeah, I do think that it's just, it's another trick, really. Like, please, don't get your bee in a bonnet when you see like a blue guy like naked on a stage. Like, it's so utterly ridiculous. Like, who is looking at that and thinking like, this is a great idea and my kid should watch this and I'm gonna like let my kid do, like, who's thinking that? Nobody. Only people who are already crazy.
There was a ton of stuff in that whole thing that had literally nothing to do with athleticism at all. No. So I don't even know why it was even there.
Right?
Have you guys ever seen the Joe Rogan sketch called "We Can Go Dumber"? No. He was talking about how they just keep electing these idiots into office who keep saying dumber and dumber stuff to see where the baseline is for the rest of society. So during the Bush administration, he was saying this because Bush kept fucking everything up with his words and everything. So then we got Joe Biden. Let's go dumber. We can go dumber. And then we've got this event. It's all geared towards the dumbest people alive. I hate to say it, but that's exactly what they're going for. They want the dumbest.
It's true. It's so true. And just to keep funneling people into the two-party system, right? Like, it's crazy. It's like, okay, well, if you're not for the blue man, you obviously are for Trump and all the ultra conservatives. No, maybe I'm somewhere in the middle because life is subtle, And also, like, there's no need to despair. When I see these things, I don't get upset personally. I'm just like, wow, I'm glad, because that means there's going to be revival. That means there's going to maybe, if you believe Jesus is coming back at some point, maybe he's coming back sooner than you think. Maybe. So it's good. I'm like, great. Bring it. Right?
Just to happen, you mentioned the two-party system, and the two-party system was realized or created in France's parliament. So they had half the room divided between these political factions. And if you were more vaguely leftist, you would be over on the left side. And if you were more vaguely rightist, you would be over on the right side. And that was how they started the basic two-party system. But that's not where it originated. It actually originated in Constantinople, like I was talking about with those chariot drivers. The chariot races had two separate teams, right? The blues and the greens. And these were the most prominent teams out there. And what Justinian and Theodora, the rulers of 5th century Constantinople, would do is play these two factions off against one another. Even though that they were, rulers in that area, they thought it would be better to keep everybody busy by fighting with each other. And so Theodora was basically on the side of the blues, and Justinian was on the side of the greens. And she would use her court eunuchs as intelligence officers. So the court eunuchs would then gather intelligence on the greens. Now, what do we see them basically turning these eunuchs into at the Olympics? These are your gods. You will be a eunuch.
Yeah, right?
That's nuts.
And interesting you brought up the chariot racing, Headless, because there is a new show on Prime that just came out, and it's called Those Who Are About to Die. And it's all about Roman chariot racing, the politics behind it. It's very interesting. I actually just started watching it. So it's weird, again, that just came out right again around the time of the Olympics, like harping on our subconscious, like all these concepts, right? But yeah, that's my hot take. Don't fear. Christ already overcame the world, so what's the big deal? That's it from me.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Did you want me to go back?
Oh,
to
no.
one?
Actually,
No?
yeah. I'm going to think about that a little bit more before I say something.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a spur of the moment thing. Well, thank you all very much. I really, once I kind of realized the people that I asked, I was like, what's perfect about this is going to be 4 different ways of looking at it. And I really, truly enjoyed this. I thought it went well, better than I could have expected. I appreciate you all spending the time, too. I know it was kind of not spur of the moment. Well, it was a little spur of the moment. It was kind of crunched for time because, unfortunately, like Headless even says, it is what it is, man. You put this out a month from now, nobody give a crap about it. You know what I'm saying? So, somebody blaming it on blood-drinking reptilians is already sold to the story.
It's going so fast.
It's Skullhouse, the Crowley and Mithras cult.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
Thank you all again. Thank you everybody in the chat. That's what's up. I was really happy about everybody jumping in. Oh, hold on one second. Somebody's got a bad echo. Ooh. Yeah. Thank you everybody in the chat. That's what's up. I appreciate it. I wanted to go live on this because I figured there would be a lot of chatter, and there definitely was. Again, that's why I try to go live, and especially with this topic, I knew it would be a fun one. Unfortunately, I was busy for a bit myself, so I couldn't, look at everything. But I appreciate it all again. And real quick, I guess before we wrap it up, too, let everybody. Teresa, do you want to plug yourself again one more time?
Sure, yeah. So this was so fun. Thank you. Also, one last thing. The French Revolution, July 14th, 1789, to the opening ceremony, 85,844 days. Come on. What is happening? Anyways, sorry. You can find me on the Spiritual Gangsters and also Midnight Mysteries Radio.
That's right.
Thank you.
And Jinn, what is up, Jinn?
Sure. So thanks, you guys. It was really fun. It was so cool to hear all of your different perspectives and to have Lisa in the chat. And she always brings like the best gems, and everyone in the chat was really cool and fun. It was, so if you want to catch me, Threshold Saints, I just dropped an episode with Daniel from End of Days Radio on EA Quetting. It's called Balg, or Become a Living God, named after the forum, and his YouTube channel or whatever that used to be. And so you can check that out. And I have an upcoming series on Tracy Twyman, 3 parts with Zach Schumar. So I know people are looking forward to that. So yeah, shout that out. It'll be out next week. And thank you guys so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much for coming on, man. I always appreciate your take on stuff. And Headless Giant, let everybody know what is up.
I wouldn't be complete without showing these off. These are my dye-sioning goggles.
Oh.
So you can actually start to see your own aura using it. You got to use a lot of light, though. Like
Wow,
to start
that's
out,
so cool.
I haven't heard of those.
So if you start out with a lot of light, you'll actually see about an inch to a quarter inch off of your skin. You're going to see there's this sort of haziness that happens there. Well, once you get into the mindset of looking at it, you can see them start to grow a lot more. So having that as a training tool actually opens your eyes when you're not putting them on. So it's really interesting. But you can photograph through them too and actually see the aura in the photographs. Like that's something that isn't remarked on enough. Is like,
wow,
hey, this stuff actually works.
I had my aura photograph one time. It was very cool. Yeah.
That was the thumbprint one, right?
No, a photographer, she does it with something on her camera, and she does like portraits. It's really interesting. And then she provides you with like a breakdown of what it means. My aura is entirely green, apparently, or it was at the time. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, so they used to have this thumbprint one where you would put your thumb on this pad, and then they would take the electromagnetic signals from your thumb and superimpose them in the background of your photo. So you're getting the electromagnetic sort of frequencies as they relate to where it is on the body. So it's
that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
I'll leave
again.
it there.
Thank you again. Yeah, man, that was great. I really loved having you all on. Again, you know, I really want to say thank you to everybody in the chat. There was a lot of, you know, just right now watching everybody say thank you for the show. There was a lot of people. I really appreciate it. It's really nice to see that. And that is the end of another Occult Rejects. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.